The air in the school auditorium was heavy, a mixture of dust, cheap perfume, and collective anxiety. Alexandra, a man accustomed to the sterile silence of meeting rooms and the smell of leather and luxury cars, felt like a stranger in that environment. There he was, billionaire Alexandre Aguiar, the man who moved markets with a phone call. But at that moment, he was just the father of Sophia, the autistic girl everyone knew as the weird fifth grader. A teacher spoke into the microphone about a recent tragedy that had shaken the school community. Then she announced a moment of prayer. Alexandre cringed, preparing himself for the embarrassment, for his daughter's possible meltdown. But what happened next stopped time. Instead of a teacher, it was Sophia who walked to the center of the stage. Alone. The silence became thick, heavy with expectation and pity. And then she began, not with words, with a melody, a low, pure, ethereal hum that grew and filled every corner of the auditorium. Wordless, universal, heartbreaking prayer. Alexandre felt a lump in his throat. The man of steel who didn't cry even when he lost millions, felt hot tears streaming down his face. Where in the world are you watching us? Have you ever felt that the most valuable things in life are those that money can't buy or fix? Today's story is about a father who had all the power in the world, but only found true wealth in his daughter's silence. Stay until the end, because his journey will touch you deeply. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Alexandre Aguiar lived in a world of numbers, graphs, and results. He built an empire from scratch. He achieved everything money could buy: mansions, jets, the respect and fear of his competitors. But at home, he was a complete failure. At home, there was Sophia, his daughter, his greatest treasure, and his deepest pain. Alexandre's outbursts don't happen out loud. They happen in the silence of his armored car, in traffic, or in the solitude of his office, on the 50th floor, as he looks out at the city that seems so small from up there. It's an internal monologue of frustration and love, a love so vast that it hurts, and a frustration so great that it suffocates him. He remembers when he held Sophia for the first time. So small, so perfect. He swore he would give her the world, and he tried. But the world Sophia understood was not his. It was a world of textures that assaulted her, sounds that hurt her, looks that frightened her, and he, with all his power, couldn't protect her from it. He felt like a spectator. He saw his wife, the late Isabella, who seemed to have a secret dictionary to translate Sophia. But Isabella had been gone for 3 years, taken by a relentless disease, and with her, the instruction manual for his own daughter. Now it was just him, and he was illiterate in Sophia's language. He loved her with every fiber of his being, but he didn't know how to show it. His love manifested itself in expensive gifts that she ignored, in trips to exotic places that left her panicked. He felt like a giant trying to hug a hummingbird without crushing it. The man who had an answer for everything didn't know how to answer the simplest question. How do I let my daughter know that I love her? This helplessness was his personal hell, a failure that none of his fortunes could ever erase. With the death of his wife, Alexandre declared war on his daughter's condition, using the only weapon he knew: money. He was determined to fix Sophia, to buy a bridge that would take him to her. And each attempt was a more expensive and painful failure than the last. First came the best therapists in the world. He chartered jets to bring in renowned specialists from Switzerland and Germany. Men and women with impressive resumes arrived at his mansion and applied rigid repetition-based methods, trying to force Sophia to fit into their charts of expected behavior. The result was a disaster. Sophia regressed. The crises became more violent, her silence deeper. She didn't need training, she needed connection. And connection was not on the menu for those specialists. Then he turned his artillery on the school. He made a large donation, enough to build an entire new wing. In return, he asked for special attention for Sophia. The school, grateful and intimidated, complied with the request. They created a resource room just for her, with a shadow tutor who followed her everywhere. The intention was good, but the effect was the opposite. It isolated her. The special attention became a spotlight that separated her even more from her classmates. She became the rich kid, the princess in the ivory tower. Alexandre's money did not buy inclusion. It bought VIP exclusion. The pain this caused was immense. He saw a mixture of envy and pity in the eyes of the other parents. He saw in Sophia a sadness that he himself had caused. Every check he signed was a reminder of his failure. He could buy the silence of a board of directors, the gratitude of a council, but he couldn't buy a single genuine smile from his daughter. The false hope that his fortune was the solution was shattered, leaving only the naked truth. In Sophia's world, he was emotionally destitute. The boiling point came at the annual school party, the family party. For Alexandra, it was a crucial networking event, an opportunity to show a facade of normality. He had clear expectations, that Sophia would wear the expensive dress he bought, that she would stay by his side, that she would, at least for one night, not be weird. But Sophia's world didn't care about her father's expectations. The party was a sensory nightmare. The loud music, the flashing lights, the smell of popcorn and cotton candy, people talking, laughing, bumping into her. It was assault. Sophia began to lose control. First, she waved her hands. Then she started making low buzzing noises. Alexandre, tense, held her arm tighter than he should have. "Sophia, please stop that," he hissed, a forced smile on his face for the other parents passing by. The crisis erupted when a clown with a loud horn approached her. That was the trigger. Sophia let out a high-pitched scream, a sound of pure panic, and threw herself on the floor, covering her ears. All heads turned. Silence spread, followed by whispers. Alexandra felt his face burn with humiliation. He tried to lift her up, but she struggled. The scene was a portrait of his failure. The billionaire, the industry titan, on his knees on a school playground, unable to control his own daughter. This conflict wasn't with Sophia. It was with himself, with his arrogance in thinking he could dictate the rules of her world. It was the clash between the power he wielded over the world and the absolute lack of power he had over what mattered most. That night, as he drove Sophia home, exhausted and asleep, he looked at himself in the mirror and hated the man he saw, a powerful man to the world, but an absent and ignorant father to his only daughter. The change didn't come from an expensive specialist or a self-help book. It came in the form of a new music and art teacher, Helena, a young woman with eyes that saw more than the obvious, and a calmness that seemed immune to chaos. Helena didn't see Sophia as a diagnosis or a problem to be solved. She saw a soul. She realized that Sophia, although she didn't speak, was deeply sensitive to patterns, to the patterns of light coming through the window, to the patterns of the leaves on the trees, and especially to patterns of sound. While the other children drew houses and trees, Sophia created complex mandalas, full of disconcerting symmetry and beauty. While the other children sang the lyrics to songs, Sophia reproduced the melodies with perfect pitch using only a soft hum. Helena began working with her, not trying to teach her, but trying to learn from her. They communicated through a piano. Helena played a note. Sophia responded with a hum at the same frequency. Helena played a chord. Sophia arranged her colored pencils on the table, each color corresponding to a note. It was a secret language, one that Alexandra never imagined existed. The turning point for Alexandra came when Helena invited him to watch one of her classes. He entered the music room, skeptical and impatient, and what he saw left him speechless. He saw Helena playing a soft melody on the piano, and saw his daughter, sitting on the floor, creating a spiral drawing, each curve and each color in perfect harmony with the music. There was peace on Sophia's face, a serene concentration he had never seen before. At that moment, he understood. He had been trying to drag Sophia into his noisy and chaotic world, when what he needed to do was ask permission to enter her quiet and orderly world. It was a silent revelation, but one that shook his foundations. Guided by Helena, Alexandra began to take his first steps in this new territory. The victories were small, almost imperceptible to the world, but gigantic for him. The first was when he stopped trying to force conversation. Instead, he sat next to Sophia in silence while she watched the rain create patterns on the window. And for the first time in months, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Alexandra hardly dared to breathe. Another victory came with music. Helena gave him a list of composers that Sophia seemed to like. Alexandra, who only listened to financial news in his car, began to listen to Eric Satie and Debussy. One day, while listening to Claire de Lune, he looked at Sophia in the rearview mirror. She was looking at him, direct eye contact, long, full of a calmness he had never seen before. It was like a hello after years of silence. The biggest victory came when he walked into her room and found her drawing one of her mandalas. Instead of asking, "What are you doing?" he sat down on the floor and began sorting the pencils by color, creating a pattern next to her. Sophia stopped drawing, looked at the pencils he had arranged, and then looked at him. She picked up a blue pencil and placed it in his hand. It was an invitation. That night, they didn't exchange a single word, but they had the most profound conversation of their lives. He was no longer trying to fix her. He was finally connecting with her. The school community was struck by tragedy. One of the most beloved students from another class had been in a serious accident, leaving everyone in shock and sadness. Alexandra's first instinct was, as always, to pull out his checkbook, pay for the best hospital, the best therapies, solve the problem with money. He scheduled a meeting with the principal, ready to offer an exorbitant amount. But Helena was at the meeting. Before Alexandra could speak, she made a different proposal. "Money is important, Mr. Aguiar," she said with her usual calm. "But what this community needs now is healing, unity. We need a moment to process, to connect with our pain and our hope." Shimo suggested a meeting in the auditorium, a moment of collective reflection. Alexandra felt a twinge of his old arrogance. What will a minute of silence solve? He thought. But then he looked at Helena and remembered his classes with Sophia. He remembered the power of silence, of connection without words. A battle raged inside him. The old Alexandra, the billionaire who solved everything with money, against the new Alexandra, the father who was learning to listen. His revenge was against his own past. He looked at the principal and said, "Helena is right. The check can wait. What you need I can't buy, but I can support you." It was the first time he admitted, to himself and to others, that there were limits to his power. That true strength did not lie in his bank account, but in the vulnerability and human connection he had spent his entire life avoiding. He wasn't just supporting Helena's idea, he was surrendering to it, and in the process, freeing himself from the tyrant he had been. The day of the meeting arrived. The auditorium was packed, the mood somber. Alexandra sat in the back row, his heart heavy. Helena took the stage and spoke briefly about the importance of finding light in the darkness. And then she said, "I would like to invite Sophia to guide us in a moment of peace." A murmur ran through the audience. Alexander held his breath. Sophia walked to the center of the stage, calm and focused. She didn't look at anyone. She just stood there, silently, for a long minute. And then the sound began. A soft hum, a single note, pure as crystal. The melody rose and fell in waves, without lyrics, without religion, without dogma. It was the sound of sadness, of hope, of compassion. It was a language that everyone in the auditorium, regardless of their beliefs, could understand. The sound filled the space, and something miraculous happened. People stopped crying and began to listen. The auditorium, once filled with individual pain, became a single body, united by Sophia's silent prayer. And deep down, Alexandra collapsed. The tears he had held back for years, the pain of losing his wife, the frustration with his daughter, the shame of his failures, all came to the surface and were washed away by that melody. They were not tears of sadness, they were tears of liberation, of pride, of a love so overwhelming that he finally understood. He wasn't seeing his autistic daughter, he was seeing Sophia, an ancient soul with a healing power he could never dream of possessing. He finally saw his daughter not as a broken version of himself, but as a whole being, luminous and perfect in her own essence. Her prayer was not just for the community, it was for him, and he, for the first time, was ready to receive it. We can build empires of concrete and steel, but the strongest foundations in life are made of love and understanding. And sometimes the most powerful prayer is the one that uses no words, only the heart. If the story of Alexandra and Sophia moved you, if it made you think about what really matters in life, like this video and comment on how you felt. Your interaction helps us keep going. Subscribe to the channel and share. Someone, somewhere, may need to be reminded today that the greatest wealth is that which cannot be counted, only felt.